I'm Jose Atencio, and this is Tower Life, your new way to view money. We don't use banks. We help you become your own banker. I wanted to create this video to tell you a bit about my story, who I am, how I found IBC. I want to start by telling you guys a bit of the story on how I became a Canadian. So that was back in 2014. We arrived in Canada from Venezuela with my wife and children. Yeah, back in 2014, we arrived in Quebec. We spent 7 years there in Quebec. Right after COVID, we decided to move to Alberta, specifically in the city of Edmonton. That was 2021. And it was just a great decision. It was difficult, but it was one of the best decisions we ever made in our lives. During that time, I started working as an IT consultant. That was back in 2021. Before that, I started my career in IT back in 2015 as an IT support person. Great job, great experience. Made great friends and relationships during that time. A couple of years after, I started doing IT engineering for another company in Quebec. And then when I moved here to Edmonton, I started working as IT consultant. That's what I did until I decided to form this company. The reason for the creation of this company is that I found the IBC concept 3 years ago. Let me tell you guys a bit of, how I found IBC. Because it's a very interesting way the way the things work. So that was back in 3 years ago. So we're 2025. That was 2022. So 2022, as I started working as an IT consultant, I suddenly started making more money than what I was making before. And, taxes in Canada, as you may be aware of that, if you're Canadian, I'm sure you're fully aware of that. Taxes are pretty high in Canada, pretty high. And you had to be creative and take ownership of your financial well-being if you are to make it in this system. It's a system that, the way I can describe the Canadian tax system, technically they call it a progressive tax system, because the more money you make, the more money you're taxed. The more money you make, more percentage of your income is taxed. Now, as my income increased, when I started doing the IT consulting, I was shocked to see how much money the government was taking. And I was already annoyed at that before becoming a consultant. But then after that, it was like, man, it's really like they punish success. So the more you work, the more you try to do the right things, the more you invest in yourself. And I started looking, start to research ways of offsetting that tax burden, right? Because those are the cards that we have been given to work with, right? That's where we live. That's the country that we have. So how do you play around those circumstances? And it all starts by education. You have to invest in your education. I fully believe that. And that's one of the big reasons why I created this company, is to bring that financial education forth. It is a sort of financial education that we are not receiving anywhere. Your traditional financial advisor won't discuss these things. And so I felt like there was a gap on this regard. So I had to take charge of that myself. And, I started investing in books and just doing tons of research around taxation in Canada. I wanted to fully understand how taxes work, strategies around investments, strategies around building your savings, all those sorts of things. So while I was doing that, back in 2022, I came across something that's called the Smith maneuver in Canada. And for those that are aware of that maneuver, well, you guys already know what it is. But for those that are not aware of the maneuver, the Smith maneuver is basically a way to make your the interest that you pay on your mortgage in Canada, to make that tax deductible. In the US, the interest that you pay for your mortgages, they are already tax deductible in the US, not so much in Canada. However, in Canada, when you sell a primary residence, so when you sell your primary home, those earnings that you make from that sale, those are not taxable, where in the US they are taxable. So, you can say, yeah, one thing offsets the other. But anyhow, while I was doing my research around that, I came across that maneuver. So I contacted a guy here in Edmonton who was advertising that he specializes in the Smith maneuver. I contacted the guy. I went to the interview with the guy, and yeah, I was expecting the guy to talk to me about the Smith maneuver, but the guy started talking about infinite banking, which is IBC, right? And I was like, I want to talk about the Smith maneuver. Why we're talking about infinite banking? And the guy was getting annoyed. I was getting annoyed, and we didn't know what was going on. The expectations were not aligned, and that's one thing that I strive to do now. I make sure that whenever we engage in conversation, that our expectations are fully aligned, because you never know, right? So anyhow, I was there with that guy talking about infinite banking. He was talking about infinite banking. I was like, I had no idea what you're talking about, man. Yeah, and then on the background, it was this book, okay, Become Your Own Banker. And I was like, what is that book? And you see this black book with red fonts, and you're like, what is this book, right? And I took notice of the book, which was like in the background, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna research that book, because it is a book about the infinite banking concept. So that's the first thing I did after the call. And I may say, yeah, the call didn't end well. I didn't have a good feeling about the guy. And I ended the call, and then I went and read this book, right? After I read this book, I may say, this is something that you cannot do in the middle of the night, because you won't be able to sleep. So so that's what happened to me. I read the book in the night, and yeah, it was very difficult to fall asleep thereafter. Great book. Yeah, so this is the first step. If you're interested in this concept, this is the first step. After this book, I read this other book, How Privatized Banking Really Works, from Carlos Lara and Robert Murphy. And this is how I got introduced to the Nelson Nash Institute, which is the institute that former Nelson Nash created to promote the infinite banking concept around North America. So this book, second book that I recommend anyone to read about. It tells you what they have done to our money. It tells you what the banking system has done and continues to do for the economy. It's not a good thing. And it also tells you how central banks work. And people don't usually think about central banks, When people think about central banks, they mostly think about, the interest rate. Because that's the only thing we hear about the central bank, if they raise or lower the interest rate. However, it's way more than that. And I will submit to you that the central banks control the country's economies. And I will also submit to you that the central bank of a country exerts more power than even their own government, their elected officials, And people don't elect the officials that will go and work for the central bank. But this is something that, people don't talk about this stuff. And another reason why, uh, I have this fire about bringing this concept to the world and tell you all about it, right? So that was the second book. Now, the third book I read was this, The Pirates of Manhattan by Barry Dyke. Great book, very dense book. But this is a book that opened my eyes to the world of investing, right? We have to differentiate the difference between investing and savings. Very different concepts, but they have been merged in this modern financial world. And now when people invest, they think they're saving, but that's actually not the case. In this book, Mr. Barry explains the idea that modern investing and investing in the stock market, mutual funds, etc., the way things work in the back end, so the way the things work at closed doors, the way deals are made, the way investment banks manipulate the economy, he basically calls investing just the same as going to the casino. And that was eye-opener to me, because you hear everybody saying, oh, you have to invest here, invest there. If you're watching a hockey game, if you're a hockey fan, you see Questrade, right? You see you see the advertising to invest. And yeah, if you're not investing, you're missing out and all that stuff. But I would submit to you that you have to think, why does everybody wants me to invest, right? And why do we accept the idea of giving away control of our money to a third party so they can do with that money whatever they wish? And then in return, we have the expectation of a profit that might not even arrive. Think about that. When you invest, are you sure that you're going to get your money back? Well, that's your hope, but are you sure of that? Right? If you are not sure that your investment is going to be worth more the next day, how can you call that savings? Because savings, by definition, you're not expecting your savings to dilute, right? If you're saving $1,000, you don't expect your savings to be $900 the next day. Something like that can happen if you are investing. So a big part of the reason why we have created this company, a big part of the reason why we have this fire to bring forth the truth about IBC and how it can change the financial lives of everyone, it's that the way traditional financial advisors, the way banking, the way the government has tricked you and tricked every one of us to think that savings equals investments. And that's not the case. Savings do not equal investments. So yeah, that's just think about that, right? That's the way they have scammed us, and they continue to scam us. So yeah, I found the IBC Concept 2022, and yeah, one of those days I said, you know what, I am ready to implement this concept. And I'm a person that, I have to do my research. So I did all my research around this. It was a good 3 months of research, intensive research, and reading books and all that stuff. I felt like I was ready. And I reached out to one YouTube channel that I was, at that time I was watching IBC content, basically videos around infinite banking and all these things. I contact those guys and they refer me to my advisor and friend now. His name is Wayne Dirksen. A huge shout out to Wayne. He has been a very important and integral part of my success in this journey. So yeah, I contacted Wayne and said, Wayne, I would love to set up the infinite banking concept in my life. And Wayne reached out, and it was funny because Wayne at that time, he was ready to start teaching me, about it. Like, he wasn't sure where I was in my journey, and I was like, Wayne, yeah, I read that book, Wayne. I read this other book. I read, this book, this book. I read this book and a couple others that I have in digital version. And yeah, so I was like, yeah, let's move on, let's do this. And yeah, so Wayne set me up, which is, yeah, Wayne is my advisor and now mentor. He set me up with my first infinite banking policy. It has been a crazy journey since that. Some months later, the more I research this concept, the more I figure out that this is the financial truth, guys. And this is what I tell my clients and friends when they ask me about this concept. I tell them, this concept is the financial truth applied. It's a huge deal. In a world that's full of lies, in a world that's full of deception, to find something that's full of truth, to find something solid, to find something that the more you research trying to find holes, you can't find a hole, right? That is very rare. And that's what the infinite banking concept and become your own banker is. It's financial truth applied. So yeah, I implemented the concept, and I decided to become an advisor, because once you get to understand this, you can't unsee it. And every time you interact with someone, and in any conversation, I was like, man, I need to share this concept with everybody. I need everybody to know about it. And that's what I was doing. And I was referring Wayne people. And then I was struck with the idea, like, I think I should become an advisor. I think I should become an infinite banking practitioner. That's what I did, and that is the whole reason for the creation of Tower Life. Right? That is the reason why I am transitioning. I have transitioned from my IT career into this beautiful role as financial advisor, bringing forth the truth of the infinite banking concept to the world. It's an honor. It's a privilege. I don't take anything for granted, and this is a huge privilege to be able to do this. And that is the whole reason for this company, to bring forth those truths. The vision for this company is to bring this truth to as many Canadians, because the more of us doing this concept, the less control the government and the bankers have on our lives. And that's something that I'm going to be expanding upon in another video. It's a very dense subject, yet very simple. IBC and the infinite banking concept, and the way you store wealth outside of the banking system, it takes control away from the bankers and back into the individual. And if you take control away from the bankers and back into the individual, just think, how much more can you achieve? And even more, how much less control does the government and the banks have upon you, right? So that is a huge part of what the infinite banking concept can do for anybody. Yeah, I will encourage everybody to look into this concept and to be in the lookout for our videos. And if any of you have any questions, please, by all means, feel free to reach out. We will be glad to assist you and show you how can you also implement this concept. That's everything for this video. I thank you very much, and I see you on the next one.